All right. Hello, everyone. I think we are live. First live stream on the Squaredrop Adventures YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging out with us. I've got four guys here that we're going to talk about Meshtastic and why you want it while you're RVing. We've got down below me, we've got Mike. Hello, Mike. How are you? You're Plan B RV, Mike.
Oh, hey. You can't have four people together without having two mics.
That's right. That's right. It's one of you needs to be like a Jason or a Frank or somebody. So.
Yeah, that's
why I go by Mike Crow, because it's microwave.
Yeah. So over here, over there, we've got the other Mike. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Howdy, howdy.
And then down in the corner, diagonal to me, we've got Robert, Digital Rancher. Hello, Robert.
Howdy.
So what we're going to do, we're going to get right into the topic, and we're going to only spend about an hour or maybe less tonight talking about why you want to run a Meshtastic node and the software and get into Meshtastic for your RV escapades and things that you can do with Meshtastic. We are all ham radio operators, and we're going to try not to get all into the weeds because there is a setting that you can set for ham radio operators, but we're going to keep this high level. So Mike Plan B RV is going to keep us honest. If he does this thing, that means we're getting too much in the weeds. So what I want to do, yes, he's going to keep us on the straight and narrow. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what is Meshtastic, and Micro and Robert are our two experts here. What I want to do is just talk about what is Meshtastic, where did it come from, what are the things that make it tick. So let's start there.
I'll just go with the super high level, then I'll let
Sure.
Robert piggyback. So Meshtastic is a simple way to send a text message with no cell service, no internet, 100% off grid by Bluetoothing your cell phone to a node, and then that node will connect to another node, which connects to another node, hence the mesh network, until it reaches its destination, just like a cell phone would with a text message. And it is person to person, or it could be person to group chat. So think of a group text message or an individual text. And that is the most simplest, basic explanation of what Meshtastic is.
And it uses these nodes to connect together and form a mesh network, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's really one of the beautiful aspects of it, right? You don't need any type of formal infrastructure, right? It's a ad hoc network. It materializes when a bunch of people are together and turn their nodes on. The nodes can find each other, and through that finding process, they can communicate. And it's it's an ad hoc network. That's really the best way to think about it.
Yeah, and you don't have to join anything. There's no like SSIDs like a Wi-Fi, and there's no passwords. It's all in the open, correct?
No account required, no sign up, complete anonymous.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about it.
There is one little nuance there, right? You can, if you choose, have private and encrypted communications, right? But it's not like overthrow the government type of encryption. Yeah. It's more like, keep the nosy neighbor out of your business encryption.
So there is some type of security that you can configure inside your application or on your cell phone that allows that type of encryption. So you could have a private chat with a family member, knowing that it's not going out there and anybody is spying on it. Correct?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
So whenever we talk about a mesh, what are we talking about? We're talking about all of these devices turn on. So you have to buy a device, a device that is compatible with Meshtastic, and whenever you apply power to it, usually it's my Meshtastic node runs on 5 volts, and I use it as with just an Anchor power brick, and I keep it in my bag. And whenever I connect this power brick and turn my node on, it automatically boots up and it goes and tries to find other nodes that are out there that are nearby, correct?
Exactly.
Yep.
And you don't necessarily need a power brick in case here's a node right here. There's a credit card for scale. This one actually has a battery built in, and it is as simple as it turns on and it's meshing. It's sending out signals and it's finding other nodes. I've got the one I carry on me every day here, and it's the size of a credit card, and it's got GPS, weather sensors on this. I can get all technical about this one, but this one is connecting to this one. So imagine these two nodes being 20, 30 miles apart, and another node being another 30 miles apart. It's going to reach this node. This one's going to receive that signal and send it out, and it's going to reach this node, which is going to ping my cell phone as a, hey, Mike, you have a message from Kyle. And that's how that works. And this is $25. This one's $50.
Yeah. So let's talk about range and why. First, first let's talk about how you buy these nodes that you just showed on the screen. And then how do I get a message into this node and let it communicate out to the world? How does that work?
So there is, let me see if I have a good simple cell phone app. I don't know if you can really see this on an iOS. It's pretty.
Yeah, it's kind of blown out there.
Get a dark mode in there. But anyway, so you would download the app. And again, it's
the
on
Meshtastic
iOS,
app, right?
Meshtastic app, iOS, and on your the Android phone.
Yep.
And there's, again, no account sign up. And you simply connect Bluetooth to the node, and then you go through basic configurations. One of the first things you do is you tell it that you're in the United States, and that will tell this radio, because this is a RF radio frequency generating device, that it will use the frequencies in the United States. So, and then after that, you set up your channels, and the channels are as simple as what they call a long fast. And without getting too technical, it just means the signal is long and it's quick. But the encryption is like a group chat. So if I send out a Bluetooth to this, hello, 30 people might receive that message, 40 people, or just one, depending how big that mesh network is, right?
And do you have to set up channels, or do you can just kind of broadcast it out to anybody?
You can just broadcast out to anybody, but yes, it would be set up with channels. So on my network, I've got an HTC-S for hikertrailer South. That's the one I host.
Yeah.
And everybody else has the same, it's here they call it a PSK key, or the encryption key. So anybody else that has the same channel name and the same encryption will receive that message like a group text.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And whenever you first get your node, whether there's a process, you can either buy a node ready to go, or you can kind of roll your own, right? If you're a little more technical, you can kind of build your own. But whenever you first turn it on with the default install of the firmware, it has a default group, and that's widely used.
Yeah.
So
gotcha.
you could do all you wanted just with that default group. Just keep in mind that's a default group, and everybody has access to that default group. So that's not very secure, but it's very easy.
Yeah.
Let me back up. Robert, you did bring up a good point. So for those, like I said, I'm trying to keep it simple, right? However, there is one bit of could be scary if anybody wants to look at it like that. When you do buy nodes such as this one, it does require you to flash the firmware onto this. However, it is a web-based flasher, meaning you would simply go to the website, you plug in a USB into your computer, plug a USB-C into this, you tell the website what node I've got and what software you want, which is the latest and greatest one, the one on top, and you hit flash, and boom, it's done. So do not be worried, nervous, or scared that I'm not technically advanced and I don't know how to flash software, but it literally is that simple there. Or like Robert had said, there is ones that are pre-configured that you can just buy off the shelf, ready to go.
Yeah. So we've purchased the node. Let's say we flashed it. We got to that point, and then we took our cell phone and we connected to that radio, that RF device that we bought, and we connect to it via Bluetooth, and We downloaded the app, connected to it through Bluetooth, and then configured a bunch of channels for our family. Or let's say we configured the Kyle channel, right? Or HTC E7. So that would be a channel name, and everyone
Correct.
can communicate on that channel
As a group.
As a group. Then whenever new people come in and they want to join that channel, how do you get new devices into that channel? You've got a
Look at
QR
that.
code.
So you can go into your channel and it has a QR code, and that new person can scan that QR code that's built into the app, and it will copy all those channel configurations and install it onto your phone, which in turn pushes it to the node. And then, so my Android has it on dark mode. So these are all the different nodes right now that my node up on my roof for the solar powered one is picking up. And if I don't know who this person is, I can actually click on there. I can say, send a private message. So I can send a message like, hey, my name's Mike. Where are you at?
Yeah.
And then they could reply back as a private message. I don't think of it as a DM on Facebook or social media.
So if you have somebody who comes into a channel that you don't know who it is and they are not responding or whatnot, you have the ability to kick them out, correct?
I don't believe that is true. Robert, can you elaborate?
No. Okay. Gotcha. So for
them to know the PSK password
yeah,
of that channel they would have gotten that somewhere.
Right. Somebody would have had to given that to them, right?
Right.
Correct.
Unless you're in that default group, right? That default group is kind of free for all, right? It's just think of it like you're in a mall, right? You're out in public, and anyone and everyone who is in the mall can potentially hear you or see you. And what I mean by see you is a lot of these devices have a GPS built into them, and they will plot, unless you change the configuration, right? There is configuration options, but out of the gate, they will plot themselves on a map that you can see within the app.
Yeah. I want to bring up this this window here. Hang on. Let me
get a question in here real quick.
Yeah,
guys,
sure, Mike.
While you're doing that, Kyle. So if I were to join this group that you were just talking about a minute ago, is it true that I only have to be within range of one of you, and then I am able to communicate with everyone within that mesh? Is that how it works? Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, I'm not on dark mode on this one. Yes.
Mostly.
Okay.
Mike, there's a notion of hops, right? And try not to get too technical. If you use the other Micro's example, right, where you can be talking, or you can be connected to someone through someone else, right? Your device might be connected to another device. That's one hop. And then that device may be connected to yet another device. That's another hop, right? So there's this idea of, think of it as a path, right? There's different waypoints along the path, and you can configure how many hops you want to be able to communicate with, right? So you could, standard or default is 3 hops. So as long as somebody's within that 3 hop range, you'll be able to communicate with them. Now, that person that's the 4th hop over, even though they're connected to the mesh, you may not be able to communicate with them.
Okay.
Let me ask this, and some people, I know that this is it depends question that we love in ham radio, but one of the questions that I got a couple of emails about the stream tonight, and one of the emails I've got or questions I had was, how far can it go? And that always depends, right? So these devices, if I'm correct, they work on 900 megahertz, right?
Correct.
In the US.
In the United
US.
States. So 900 megahertz is, that is, I think, just above some of the cell phone bands that we have here in the United States. Like, I think some cell phones communicate in the 800 megahertz. And I know that probably doesn't mean a lot to people, but if I'm standing on flat ground and I can see, for miles and miles and miles, what type of range am I going to possibly get to communicate, to have two of these devices communicate to one another? Is there like
So I
a
think
general mileage?
right now, there's actually, and to throw some ham radio in there, there's some DXing contests there, or how far can you talk, right?
Yeah.
Right now, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 720 miles is the one hop distance record right now.
Good.
That might be
grief.
kilometers. I don't remember which one, but it's a ways. But Kyle, to your point, if you and I are standing in a desert,
yeah,
and we're yelling at each other, we can absolutely hear. But if we put a mountain between us, there needs to be, Mike Plan B RV standing on top, and I say, "Hey, Mike, tell Kyle I said hi." Then he's going to turn around and yell at Kyle and say, "Hey, Kyle, Mike says hi," and that's how that node mesh works. And then if there was 20 people between them, they could hop around, but then the system itself will look at that group of people and determine what is the best path that I can go through to make it the less number of hops and the quality of the signal.
So as people join the network and the mesh becomes more strong, it automatically figures out what is the best route to other people. So whenever I send a message, if it's a direct message and needs to go to a certain person, it knows where those people are at and forms that best path scenario to deliver that message, correct?
That is correct. And just to piggyback on the range, today I was actually flying from Reno to DFW, and I'm cruising actually I had the GPS up at 31,000 feet, and I was communicating. I was talking to people there on the ground as I'm passing by at 400 miles an hour.
Oh, wow.
So
that's cool.
Just like a ham radio or any other antenna, the higher the antenna is, the more range you have.
Yeah, gotcha. Does it have any?
I think a practical, right there. There's kind of a practical range, though, right? And I think, if people have an expectation that they'll be able to talk within a mile or two, that's easily doable in most geographies.
Yeah.
Right. So it's great for your camping situation. It's great when you're going out with a group of buddies. Again, it's ad hoc. Everybody shows up, everybody turns on their thing, and you've got an instant network and everyone can communicate. You're generally not going, you're going to be within a couple of miles, usually, not always, but usually, of
so
each
similar
other.
to just like a walkie-talkie, the regular walkie-talkie, maybe a little better.
What made this whole thing pop for me, and the reason I originally posted it on the Hiker Verified page, was I was hosting an HTC event, and unofficial. We had, I believe, 8 trailers there. And as we were communicating on Facebook before the camp out, we said we're going to supper Saturday at I think 6:30 or 5:30. And the park we were at had absolutely zero cell service. And between my wife and I, we had each person's cell number that we could text back and forth, and as we do at other campsites. But this particular one, something went awry and everybody kind of got off track, and dinner ended up being at 5:30, not 6:30. And so half the group's leaving, the other half stayed behind. And then we come back and we get to the restaurant, and only 4 of us are there out of the 8. And we're like, where's the other half of the people? And nobody knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And that's when it kind of clicked. We have the GMRS option, but people get, like my wife despises radio. She hates walkie-talkies. And I can see that with other people. Plus there's you don't need to take a test to get a license for GMRS, but you should get your license. And then there's all other options out there that are too geeky, nerdy, or high level. Whereas had anyone just bought a $20 node and they're used to their cell phone, they could have just sent a text message and said, hey, dinner plans for now changed to 5:30. And at that campground with no cell service, we could very easily have communicated that to everybody. Or they said, hey, one time my baby's not doing good or having diaper problems, we're going to be a little late. And that would have been, okay, cool, we'll meet you there. Just your simple text messages. But being with that hiker group, nobody's able to communicate because there's no cell service.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what sparked the idea. So per Robert's point, as expectations of range, you're going to be at a campsite, or if you're at one of the large HTC X events.
Or any
you'll-
event, right?
Right. You will see, and Meshtastic happens at Burning Man. It happens at in the Austin events. Any large gathering of people, you're going to see a Meshtastic explode out there, because that's where it, when cell towers get overloaded, even cruise ships, right? There's no cell on a cruise and you can't text, so you can use Meshtastic on a cruise.
Oh, that's
And
a good idea. Yeah.
you can communicate with your family via text messaging, and internationally you could text because you're not using a cell service, thus no data, right? So
let me ask you this. If let's say I have my node that I purchased and I'm at base camp, and a friend of mine goes out for a hike, and they are over a mountain, right? And kind of outside of that 1 mile or 2 mile range. And they send a message, but my node is not connected to their node and cannot see their node anymore. Whenever they come back up the mountain and get to a proximity where our nodes are now meshed together and see each other, will that message go ahead and send, or do they need to send that message again?
typically you'll get a timeout. So as Robert said, this default number of hops nodes it connects to is 3. If it cannot make 3 hops or it cannot connect, it will say unable to connect, and then that message just fails.
Okay. But I'm going to be able to see that message failed on my phone. So therefore, whenever I get into range, let's say I go into the top of the mountain, I can resend that message and say, hey, I'm okay. Or, I'm going to be 15 minutes late, right?
Correct. And on that note, we have this node here with that antenna, and then my EDC, which is the credit card. But then for the hiker events, this is what I've got here. And that's a, pretty good size antenna.
Yeah.
And very high gain. So this will actually magnetically attach to my crossbar on my hiker. And it's got a 1,000 milliwatt or amp hour battery in there. And that's just a battery with a very small node in there. And this is to recharge it with USB-C, but this battery will last a week.
Yeah.
And so with this up there on the hiker, the chance of that node being slightly out of range, this antenna will catch it, and then it will rebroadcast it out to your node or whatnot.
Yeah. So let's talk about almost having some type of, kind of repeater system where you could take that you have, Mike, and you could put that up on a pole 20 foot up. And therefore the higher you get a node, the more range it's going to have, and it's going to be able to see more nodes out there on the network, correct?
That is correct. Now, here's where we're going to get into a little bit of lower level or more detail. So I carry this node with me daily. This fits my wallet. It's just very small. So you have options of how these nodes connect or act with the network. So you have what they call a client, then you have a client mute, and then you have a router, and you have a repeater.
Okay.
And so this is going to be a client, and a client will take your message and pass it on to Mike.
Okay.
But it will also take my Bluetooth message to my phone, and it will pass it on through Kyle, through Mike, down to Robert.
Okay.
Now, this one is sent to client mute. So it will accept my Bluetooth message to it, but then when I send it to Kyle will get it. But when Robert sends a message, it's not going to repeat that message. It doesn't do, it's like it doesn't exist. It's quiet.
Okay. Got it. Understood.
Muted. So because this is in the car and this is on my body and smaller battery, there's no need for this to be passing messages, eating up battery, and adding. These are so close together, there's no point. It's not really adding much to the mesh, right?
Right.
So this one's on mute. This is client. Now where people get confused is they're like, oh, hey, I've got a big one here. I want this to be a repeater, because it will take all the information and it'll take it in and spit it out.
Right.
However, going back to hops. So a repeater will force all traffic through itself. So if this node is literally right here, and this node is literally right here,
configured as a repeater.
This is a repeater. This is a client or client mute, and Mike is 2 miles away. it's going to force this one to go through here burning a hop. So now instead of it going through Kyle's node, through Robert's node to get to Mike, that would be 3 hops. It's going to burn one because this is set to repeater, and that's going to be 1 hop, and then Kyle's 2 hops, Mike is 3 hops, Robert's not getting the message. So there is very, very few instances where you would set a node to a repeater or a router, unless you're on a massive structure or on top of a mountaintop. There's no reason to use those options. So the 2 options you would always use would be client or client mute.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. So if somebody wanted to buy one of those large boxes that have a node in them and have an external antenna, you would just probably just set it up like any other node on the network. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So fun fact, this is the smaller one, different brand, but this is what's in this box is the same thing that's in this box, just a different brand. This is a project box. This is an antenna. And then this is all DIY homemade. I 3D printed the offset to point that, to mount that node. And again, credit card size. So that node is just basically the same size as this node, just different form factor.
Yeah.
This is a Wise block node, which you can add. This one has GPS on it, but you can add humidity, temperature, altitude, accelerometer. So there's other uses for this. You could track your loved ones. If you want to throw one of these in their car, then you can see if your kiddos are speeding at night, right? If you're losing your luggage, you want to find another way instead of an AirTag or an Android tile or whatever, you can use those to track your luggages. And in fact, this one, the T1000, started off as a inventory tracker for location and environmental to know if a product was being frozen, cooked, shaken, dropped, banged around, or whatnot. So
gotcha. Okay. Have we
Kyle?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just backtrack us just a bit. Your question about will somebody know that a message was sent to them, right? If somebody's out of range. Meshtastic does have a capability, and certain node types can do this, others can't, but it is a feature within the software, and I think it's a good one. There is a store and forward capability, so that in that case where maybe you weren't able to reach another node that is temporarily out of range or something of that nature, if somebody is set to store and forward, they'll hold on to that message, and then when they see the other node rejoin the mesh, it'll forward that message. So it's something you have to kind of plan for a little bit, but it's a nice feature to be able to implement in your group, right? But you have to have certain nodes with that capability.
Yeah, Benjamin says that store and forward isn't automatic and you have to manually configure it, right?
Correct. And it only works with certain radio types.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else high level on the characteristics or things that we want to cover? I also hold that thought while I say my other thought. I also saw here, let me add this to the scene here. This is from the Meshtastic homepage. So if you go to meshtastic.org and you click on this learn more, it shows this this mesh network here that the underlining protocol is called LoRa, but it also had a computer down here, and it had 2 things that I found interesting. Not only does this communicate via cell phone, but you can hook your computer up to one of these nodes and communicate. I'm assuming that there is a Windows client that you can download to communicate through the Meshtastic network. Is that correct?
Well, better than that. I think it's better than that.
Okay.
There's a web client.
Okay.
Right. So you can run it on a Raspberry Pi. You can run it on your Mac. You can run it on, some other Linux variant. You can run it on a Windows machine.
So it's web-based, which is good.
Yeah.
But then there is also, I guess now we're going to do a transition here into maybe some hardware. You don't have to have a cell phone. You don't have to have a computer to communicate on the Meshtastic network. There are devices that literally look like the old BlackBerry keyboards or the old BlackBerry phones that have a T9 or not a T9, a keyboard on them, and they will show the device or the communication that is coming across the network.
Robert's got it right there. T-Deck. Yep.
You want to make that big, or do you want? Can you make that?
So I've got all. I'm like surrounded by Meshtastic devices, right? They're like gremlins. They seem to populate on their own. But this is the T-Deck, and let me.
I've got you highlighted here, Robert.
All right. Let's see. I'll try to.
Oh yeah.
There you can see the interface. It's quite nice. It's a touch screen interface, and this actually is an old school BlackBerry keyboard. I think they actually built many of them. I think they've run out at this point with actual new old stock from BlackBerry, from RIM. So you've got that type. Mike has shown this type. This is probably the best value out there, right? For $40-$50, depending on where you buy it.
Yeah.
To get you into it. It's IP65 rated, I believe. So it's fairly waterproof. It's got great battery life. The chip that it uses is very efficient. So you get a lot of mileage for $40 or $50 on that one. This is another solar node type of thing, and so this is something you can throw up on your hiker or throw on a mast, and it'll keep itself running with the it's a solar panel on the front. And then there's you've got this is kind of like another extreme. This is a Seed Studio really small Meshtastic device.
Yeah.
So this has got a LoRa antenna, as well as this is the LoRa antenna, and a GPS antenna. So you can kind of plug this in just about anywhere, right? You just give it a USB-C connection, and boom, you've got a device. And then this is another extreme, right? It's just like anything else, right? There's like all these different extremes. This one here has a Raspberry Pi built into it. It's got its own GPS. It's got its own LoRa radio. You can run the client on this and do all kinds of neat things, with these devices. So there are all kinds of devices at all different price points. There's stuff for the makers and the tinkerers, and there's stuff for the people that just want to buy it and have it work, right? You can buy a bunch of these, hand them out to your kids before you go camping. And, the other thing is, it's just kind of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle, you remember how much fun we had, I guess it was
2 years ago.
Hamvention 2 years ago, right?
There was like 200 people that had, maybe it was a little bit less, but I mean, people were texting everyone. People were sending me direct messages. Hey, where are you? What's going on? It was great.
Yeah, just a ton of fun. And there's the other thing that's really cool about it is it's a very active community. It's evolving, right? There's a lot of contributors to the project. It's evolving. It's always, they're always improving it. And it's got a very practical side, but it's also a lot of fun.
Right. So Plan BRV, Mike, now that you've heard a lot of this and you're getting into it, where do you think you would see you using it? And do you see any cons out of this so far?
Well, I like the idea of being able to, the example that you gave on the cruise ship, in a situation where you don't have cell phone. There's a lot of times we're out in situations where we either have no cell phone or it's spotty. I've been in places like around, the towns around Glacier National Park have network systems there, but they get overloaded during tourist season. So basically in midday, all the cell networks just go down. You just lose connection because there's so many people on there using it.
Right.
So I see that application. I guess I'm wondering, are there other applications beside just the communication aspect? Us being able to pass messages back and forth to each other. That's one question I have. What other practical uses might that have for us? Can I use it to sense things around of what's going on in my RV while I'm out adventuring somewhere away from my home? What other practical applications are there out there?
So I believe, Robert, I'm not a good person on this one, but I know it can integrate with HomeAssistant, which is a whole nother rabbit hole if anybody goes down that one. But I believe that you can integrate it with HomeAssistant, and with like this one has the environmental controls on it. You can have an if this then that. So when it sends out, if the temperature rises and you got pets in the RV above X, then the HomeAssistant automation would kick on, and
perfect example,
things like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Benjamin says there's a lot of sensors enabled, like stuff, door sensors send a message when stuff is open. So I would assume, like Mike said, that you could put, if you had a door sensor, like a what are those door sensors that I have that I can't remember? Shelly devices. If you had a Shelly device that had a window or door sensor on it, whenever that was that connection was broken, you could probably send a message to HomeAssistant and then integrate that into your your Meshtastic. Yeah.
Or like a water leak device detector, because we've heard horror stories of people coming back from adventuring out during the day and water's pouring out of the bottom of their RV because a pipe snapped and they're hooked up to the city water and didn't turn it off, and it's just been sitting there cycling through their RV.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
I think just real quick before we jump off that, Mike, I want to make sure you caught the idea of being able to post your location on a map, right? I think that's quite handy, right? So if you want to hand one of these to the kids and send them out, they're running around the campground or wherever you guys might be, you're able to pull up that map in your app and you can get a good idea of where they physically are.
Yeah, I do like that. My kids aren't, they're definitely not afraid of the dark, and we'll be out in the national forest and they'll just literally go running out in the woods in the middle of the night, and they're not worried about anything. So that would be handy.
Yeah.
And we had these little watches that they could wear, something that we got through the Verizon service that was supposed to do exactly that we could track them through, but they just stopped wearing them, stopped using them, and now it's kind of a waste. But if we could just stash one of those bugs on them somewhere and we could track them.
Well, even if I'm guessing your kids have cell phones, right? And
they do now,
they can text to each other, and that might be enough just to keep them with it in their pocket, right? You get them one of these little guys, shove it in their pocket, and now they can text each other, and it's kind of a step cooler than the old walkie-talkies when we were a kid and we got a walkie-talkie. Now, the problem you might have, Mike, is they might be talking all night, texting each other, and you might not know it, but
well, I got one too, right? I mean,
as long as they don't lock you out, right? They could lock you out. They create their own channel.
Yeah, they would do that. Yeah.
But that's one of the best pros to this network and this technology is it is your cell phone, and that is what people are used to. And kids, it's not cool to be using a walkie-talkie or to have this dangling off their belt or whatnot, but this in their back pocket or in those little wallets that go on the back of the phones, and they're just using their cell phone just like they always do.
They're texting.
It's not anything that anybody has to learn. It's not anything awkward. And it's just, you open up an app and you text. But if you use WhatsApp or any of these other apps that you have to open to text, it's exactly the same thing. So,
yeah. I'm going to dive a little bit more deeper into the weeds here, and let's just touch on this because there's a setting that I don't understand. That whenever I set up my node, I was literally, I will give you some background. I was literally like handed a node at Hamvention last year, which is a big ham radio convention, and the guy was just like, "Here, you need this," and I'm like, "I don't even know. I don't want this." And they're like, "Here, you need to configure this. We're gonna set you up." And so
That wasn't me, was it?
No, it was Loyal from
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. Why aren't you on this? You need to get on this new system. So I was on the new system, and I was goofing around. And whenever we went back to camp, this is a convention that has like 30,000 people roaming around some fairgrounds. And this is kind of how we, not only on our radios, we were keeping track of each other, but we were texting each other and saying, "Hey, everyone's back at camp. Come back to camp." But there was a whole discussion regarding, there is a setting where you can connect or like allow WAN connection or allow network over the internet connection. Can somebody explain what the pitfalls and why we didn't enable that, or where you would configure that setting? Because it wasn't clear to me on why that setting was so important.
So
Like
that's considered, the MQTT. So, and here's a ham radio jab is FT8 real radio. Meaning you have Chevy, Ford, Dodge, Toyota, which is better, which is next. So the purpose of this technology is to off-grid communicate.
Right.
By interjecting in the MQTT or web connection, it's no longer off-grid. Now you are physically relying on a cell network or the internet to pass your messages.
Okay.
So prime example, I've got MQTT enabled on one of my nodes, and I was in Reno for the last 3 days, and I'm on the channel that's called DFW and another channel called Texas, and I'm able to text as if I were home from Reno, Nevada. So I am 1,000 miles away, and I'm able to keep up with all the group chats and the texting with the Texas channels and the DFW channel. But is it real? It's not off grid. It's basically chatting through WhatsApp.
So let me throw this scenario out. Let's say you are in Death Valley and you have Mike is in Death Valley, and he has put up a couple of nodes, and everyone around is able to communicate to Mike in Death Valley. He's keeping track of his peeps, and everything's hunky dory. Then one of his kids and his wife maybe go into town, and they are now in town, and they are out of range of the Meshtastic network. Obviously, the easiest thing is to, I'm assuming, and Mike has internet at he's got Starlink, and he is connected to the internet. So I guess, if he could text his wife and say, "Hey, pick up some milk because we're low on milk," that is one way that he could send a message. But if he does not have data texting enabled, he could connect to the Meshtastic network, have that connect to the internet, send a message through the Meshtastic into the internet, and then it would pop up on his wife's phone, who is in town, who is connected to the internet. Do I have that scenario correct?
High level, yes.
I think you've got it. So MQTT, think of it as an internet gateway. Okay. So, if you're the guy who, is on the bleeding edge in your little town out in the middle of nowhere, and you see all these people talking about Meshtastic, and you're like, "Man, I'm going to get me one of those nodes. This is going to be cool."
Yeah.
You get the node, you get it home, you turn it on, and it's crickets, right? Because you're the only guy in town that's got it.
Right.
Right. It's like, well, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Right. So for that poor guy, he can turn on MQTT and jump in that default long fast channel, and now all of a sudden he's connected to everybody else who's got MQTT turned on their device.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
So he's now part of the, part of the group, right? Part of the experience. So just think of it as an internet gateway. Now the problem comes in, first of all, your radio can keep track of 100 nodes at a time.
Okay.
Okay. Once you get to 100 nodes, now you've got a problem. Your radio can't keep track of new nodes.
Okay.
Right. So if you're in a big group, like we were at Hamvention, and there's already 100 people there, or let's say there's 75 people there, right? And then somebody turns on MQTT and connects the internet. Now
Oh,
you've flooded your network, and you've flooded all of the devices. And, there's likely people that are at the event who joined the mesh later who you can't communicate with because you've hit your max number of nodes.
I think that happened a couple of times.
It did.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it
Okay. Now
definitely
this
did.
is making sense. Okay.
Yeah, that's why we said the next time, all right, we're gonna configure our nodes so that we're maximizing communication within our group at our event, and we're
Okay.
going to kind of carve out our little world so that we can communicate more effectively, more consistently. And we're gonna turn off things like MQTT. We're gonna limit the number of hops that we're going to go, right? There's different settings that you can configure your radio at, and everybody in your group kind of needs to do the same thing, right? Because if you have one guy that turns on MQTT, right now,
it's the guy who farted at the party. Yeah.
That's right. and everyone's hitting them with pillows, but
right. Okay, so that makes sense now. Okay, yeah. That's why everyone's like, no, turn that, don't check that box. You're gonna spoil it for the rest of us.
That's right.
Okay, gotcha. So if you Russell came in and said no Meshtastic in my town, but enabling MQTT would be a perfect scenario for him, so he could see nodes outside of his town and actually get in on the action, right?
Now, Kyle, you may or may not remember this, but the first year we were tinkering around with this, I think it was the first year. Jason, I think, stayed at your house the night before, or right?
Yes.
And he had just gotten his nodes. So our buddy Jason, right? He had just gotten his nodes. He was hearing all about it. And he's like, oh, I got everybody else is going to have these things. I've got to get on the bandwagon. And he was trying to get them set up, but he was in that situation, right? He was at your house, hundreds of miles away from everybody else. And he's like, well, this kind of sucks, right? I can't talk to anybody. But then we both turned on MQTT, and all of a sudden we were able to talk to each other.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Totally makes sense. I did not understand that whole don't enable the internet button, So now I understand.
Skynet is the virus.
Yes. yes. Okay, very good. So we've got 10 minutes left here. I wanted to keep this under an hour. Mike, is there any questions, or do you feel that you've got a better understanding of what Meshtastic is and how you could implement it at your base camp and communicate and keep track of people?
Yeah. So if we meet up with a bunch of friends out in the woods somewhere, we circle the wagons. We did this once in Michigan last summer. There's 3 of us there that are all circled up. If we're in an area with no cell phone service at that spot, either we have our own node, or one of us has one node that everyone else can access. Can it work both ways like that?
So my wife had that question, and she was like, oh man, so good. Glad you asked that question. I'm shocked that we didn't bring it up. Excellent question. It is one phone per node, period.
Okay.
You cannot have multiple devices connected to each node. So on like
everybody
this
gets
one,
their own.
Yep. On Amazon, this is part of a 2-piece kit. Comes with the case, the screen, everything you need, the battery. I think it's 2 for $60. And that includes everything you need right there. So for a couple, I would go that route. But yes,
Okay.
excellent question.
Okay.
One
Yeah, it's a
node
good
per
question.
person.
And on the
Yeah, and
MQ, go ahead, Robert.
I was just going to say, I'm a real big proponent of this for first timers, right? It's like I said, it's waterproof. It's the size of a credit card. It works fairly well. It's certainly going to work in a campsite type scenario, and you know, it's $40, right? And I mean, so you can buy a few, and the battery will last for like 2.5 days. That's the other
Yes.
thing that's really impressive about these, where some of these other devices, you know, they're, you know, less than 24 hours. That thing will run 2.5 days. So that would be that's what I always recommend as a first time device.
Yeah.
The MQQT, how does that access the internet? Does the device itself have to be plugged into the internet, or is it accessing it wirelessly somehow?
Through your phone.
It's through your phone. Okay. So your phone then has to have service in order for that to work.
Correct.
Gotcha.
I can also see, maybe I'm being a little selfish here, but I can always also see where you could hand these out, you know, like at a big festival, or not hand them out, but like, you know, be on the network and not need to give everyone your cell phone number, right? I'm always a little weary about, like, whenever people like, they come up to me at these huge conventions, and because I have a YouTube channel, a ham radio YouTube channel, they're just like, "Hey, I need to communicate with you. What's your cell phone number?" I'm like, no. You know?
So this little guy right here, $10.
Oh yeah.
$10, right? So put this in a little 3D printed case.
Yep. It's $10.
Right? Put this in a little $10. I mean,
So you can,
it's tough to get any cheaper than that.
can you buy those off of Amazon, Robert?
I'm not sure if you can. So this is a Seed Studio device. So
Okay.
Seed Studio sells direct. It's SEEED Studio, 3Es, and they've got several versions of it. So make sure you look for the Meshtastic version of that. If you like, Kyle, I can send you some links if you want to add them to the description.
Yeah,
there you go, Seed Studio. Just type in Meshtastic up in your search bar. These guys sell all kinds of cool, fun stuff. Meshtastic is just one of the items. Now, see, Kyle can't follow directions. Kyle, just type Meshtastic and you'll get all their different things, because they have a bunch of them.
Huh? Why do you want? Okay.
All right. So you see, so that one's 13, but the one I'm talking about right here is this ESP32S3 and WIO SX1262. That's $9.90. That's a 3D printed case, right? That's
right here.
If you want one with a case, right? Or you can print your own case, but that's $10.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
What's it like flying with these things? Because, you know, from an ignorant standpoint, they kind of look like triggers to me.
So like I said, I flew today, and I had both this one with a like a Wi-Fi antenna on it sticking out of my backpack, and I had this guy on me as well, and not a single issue through TSA.
No question.
And also, I've got another one of these in my checked luggage. So again, it's like a GPS tracker and AirTag. So then, and it's got a moving map where I can plot it on a map and see where it's been, where it's going, how fast is, what the temperature is, humidity. So I can see all of that. So, you know, I can, if my bag's lost, I know if it's 100 degrees, it's sitting outside, but if it's 70 degrees, it's probably inside somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, so, and you can get down pretty tight, pretty small with it too, but it's just another resource to track inventory, luggage, kids, or anything that you need.
So that you get the credit card node, and Robert showed us a very simple node that probably needs a case. And then Mike, you had showed a node 2 for $60. Can you show that again so I can highlight that?
It's this one here.
Okay.
And if you buy just the board, I don't know if I can So if you buy just the board, here's a fun fact: is the case that the board comes in is there's actually a YouTube video out there where you can use the case that the board ships in as its own case. So you don't even need this nice case here, because when you buy the board, it comes with the antenna, the battery, and no, it does not come with the battery, but you can order a battery. But the case it comes in, and you can use the foam that it comes in to help stabilize the screen. And then you drill a small hole in the top and put the antenna. I wish I had brought it in here. It's sitting outside. But if anybody tracks weather balloons, there's the same technology and the same idea about putting it in the case that it comes in. So also just, I want to make sure I throw this out there before we leave. Meshtastic.org on the GitHub or the website, the FAQ on there is phenomenal. So anybody who does have questions, that it will explain everything that we've discussed in high level and in extreme detail, however deep you want to go. Yeah, I was looking. Let me bring that back up, and maybe we'll end on that. FAQ is really good too. Let's see, remove. Yep. So, yeah, this FAQ. How do I update the node's firmware? Which version of firmware? You've got Android client. You've got an Apple client. Channels. How do I share my channels? Yeah, I mean, this is great. It's
really well done.
Yeah, it's let's go down here to hardware devices. So I'm sure that it's probably going to say, oh yeah, supported devices, which boards I should choose. Yeah, this is great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very good. Let me remove that. Anything that we didn't hit on that you guys want to talk about in the next couple of minutes? Anything that you want to, and then we'll go around the horn here and plug our social media and our channels. So I just want to throw out there one more time that don't be intimidated by this technology. It really is this simple. Plug and play, and you're communicating with your family, your friends. Like Mike Plan B said, you're in that small circle and there's no cell service. Hey, campfire at my campsite number 6 at 5 o'clock. Let's go. And don't overthink it. It literally is that simple. Yeah.
How much was that device you just had in your hand there, Mike?
That one was 40. I think Kyle had pulled it up. I believe you're going to post a link to the Seed Studio on this one. Yeah. So in the description below, I'm going to post some links to some different devices that we talked about. And that was my plan.
So that's the starter you guys talked about, and $40 and you're in.
And another thing, sorry, I don't want to step on anybody's feet here, but if you buy one and Kyle's not, I can say, hey, Kyle, you can borrow this for this camp out. Just download the app, connect it to Bluetooth, and he's up and running because the channels are on this. When you program it with your phone, it programs the node. So when Kyle now connects it to Bluetooth, all the channels will be on his phone. And then when the campsite's over, just be sure and grab it or say, hey, man, you owe me $40. That's a great... It's a great feature that you can program one and give it to somebody, and it's already pre-programmed. It's ready to go. That's awesome.
Oh. Yeah, that's what a lot of groups, like rescue groups and stuff, will do. Right? They've added these to their loadouts, and they'll have pre-flashed, a dozen pre-flashed devices, and when they get to the event, they'll pass them out just like they pass out the radios. And it's part of the kit. It becomes part of their.
Tell your groups to download the app before they get to the campsite with no cell service.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah. Very good.
It's like when I leave my RV and my Starlink and then realize I don't have my road directions yet. I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah. Yep.
Benjamin, great live stream. I'm a developer for Meshtastic. Thanks, Benjamin. Appreciate it. Was just watching for interest. I think more people should use Meshtastic for hiking outdoors. Yeah. Again, I was given a node and I put the node in my bag for Hamvention. That's in a couple of days. I'm leaving for Dayton, and I'm going to get more into it. The more I learn about it, the cooler this thing is, and I'm gonna use it more after Hamvention. So
yeah, and there's huge support for this popping up all over the place. I know in North Texas here, we've got a Discord group that has over 300 people that are actively involved in Meshtastic. And here in my county, I mean, people are, we've got all these tower monkeys around here. They're climbing up their ham radio towers and they're putting Meshtastic nodes on these things. And I mean, we've got a really robust network in the area, and it's fantastic.
That's great. That's awesome. I love whenever like people come together and they use free stuff, or not free stuff, but like they use a free protocol, and now we're all communicating. And it is a very neat thing that is very, very modern. And versus everyone getting on the CB. Oh, now we have GMRS. Screw GMRS. Now we got family radio. Screw that. Now we got Meshtastic. So
yep.
Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, you can't discount the fun factor. It really is.
I've met some great friends on the open channels. Yeah, I've met some amazing guys, and we chit chat all the time now, and never met these people first. Just like being on radio, you have the best QSOs and with perfect strangers, and come to find out we've got a lot of things in common. So
right. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Again, thanks for hanging out, everyone. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the comments below, and I'll try and answer them or get you an answer. Mike, Plan B RV. What do you want to plug here at the end?
We're exploring the West Coast this year. That's what we got going on our Plan B RV channel. And on my ham radio channel, Traveling Ham, we'll be doing kind of the same thing. Going to be lots of really cool places up and down the West Coast that we're going to be visiting. On Plan B, I'm exploring how cheaply we can camp the state of California. So by the time we're done with this year, I think we'll have been in the state for like 5 months. It'll be a good amount of time. But I think by utilizing a 1,000 Trails membership, campground membership, I can keep that cost down to under $10 a night. So we boondock most of the time, but there's parts of the country that it doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
This is one of them. Florida, Panhandle's another, the Northeastern, New England and that area along the East Coast. So I'm thinking I can keep that under $10 a night for all that time in California. So we're gonna be tracking that and see how all that goes.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see more videos and see how you make out. Mike Crow, what's you've got? You had a channel. Do you want to plug anything, or what's going on there?
I had another channel, a whole nother genre of metal casting, and just like the standard story everybody hears, I had, good Lord, I think 12,000 plus subs, and it got hacked and lost it all. Started building it back again. I'm like, you know what? I'm done with the YouTube algorithms and that stuff. But my hobby channel is Micro Outdoors, and it's just a basic how-to DIY channel. I'm not a very good poster anymore, but when I find something that needs to be shared or said, I will post up there. So anything outdoorsy, hiking, camping, hiker stuff gets put on there. Vehicle maintenance for traveling and hiking is on there as well. So and then I don't think I've got any ham radio stuff on there. I kind of keep that off to the side.
Don't put it on there. The algorithm's going to hate you. So
yeah, that's what I've heard. And I think Josh at NAZ said that. So I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So, but yeah, up here in the Dallas area, and I do run the HTC South group. So,
very good. Cool.
Yep.
Robert, what do you got coming up?
Yeah, well, on my ham radio focused channel, primarily ham radio stuff, I'm building a satellite ground station. So that's keeping me quite busy. I'm kind of going in with both feet beyond and over my head in many respects. So, but it's a lot of fun. I've got a couple of videos out there in the series. I've got another one that'll drop this weekend. Getting ready for Hamvention. I just bought a new truck here a couple of weeks ago, and all you camper guys, all you hiker guys, camper guys, overlanding guys, you've got me like staying up way too late looking at all kinds of fun stuff on the web, and becoming a stat nerd on all these different bed racks and caps and wheels and tires and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, not that I'm sharing any of that stuff beyond just talking about it, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to kind of building my truck out.
Robert went to the Moore Expo and he put a dent in the credit card. So he's like,
All I gotta say is look at the Kuwait rack. That
Well,
is
I
amazing.
did. I really like that. They don't make one for my truck though. So
Which one do you got?
I've got a big boy truck. I've got a Silverado 2500 HD. So
Okay.
they make, you know, they make it for all the, you know,
Half-ton
Toyotas
folk.
and yeah.
yeah.
So I'm finding that to be the case in a number of different areas. But
I sold my 3/4 ton just for that reason and went to half ton because it's easier to buy parts for.
yeah. Well, I fit better in a 3/4 ton. We'll just say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Robert has no business being in a Tacoma. We found that across Wyoming and Utah and Idaho
Montana.
and Montana. I mean,
Knees up like this.
oh my gosh,
Exactly. It's a long trip.
we had to grease him up to get him into my truck.
That's funny.
All right. On that note, I think we'll say peace out. Thanks, guys, for hanging out, and for everyone in the chat. And hopefully, we put some ideas in your brain about Meshtastic, and maybe you'll go out and take a look and do some more research, and maybe even buy some nodes and set them up with your family and put them on the air at your campsite. So
That'd be awesome.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Everyone that was on the stream, appreciate it. Thanks for taking an hour and a half out of your day and
Pleasure.
rapping with me. And yeah. All right. Very good. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you later.
Thanks, guys.